We all follow this man on Twitter. I follow him, but he's never really been on this program, so that's about to change. His new book is must-read for all NFL fans prior to the season. Certainly if you are going to go in to your fantasy world knowing what's what. The 2022 football preview, the fastest way to get smart for the 2022 pro football season, is available where all books can be acquired. The lead analyst at SportsGrid, The Ringer, and Sharp Football Analysis here on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line. Welcome to the Rich Eisen Show, Warren Sharp. How you doing, Warren?
Hey, I'm doing great, Rich. So happy to be able to talk to you for the first time.
Right back at you, man. I really enjoy following you on Twitter. You do, in fact, make me smarter. Let's talk to you first about the story of the day. Tyron Smith out for the foreseeable future. It sounds like the season. Jerry Jones on First Take made it seem like it's possible he returns late in the regular season campaign and is back for a playoff game. How significant is this injury in your mind, Warren?
It's massive. I think people are still underestimating the importance of Tyron Smith out on the field. You could look at splits in a variety of different ways, but what I like to look at splits, first let's talk about the run game, the impact in the run game. When Dallas has him on the field and they are running the football with their running back on early downs in the first three quarters, and I always segregate stats, Rich. I always like to split out things that aren't quite as predictive. That's third downs or fourth quarters of games. So I like to look at early downs in the first three quarters. When he was on the field, Dallas's running backs averaged the number one most efficient per carry attempt in the NFL over the last three seasons. And when he was off the field, that dropped all the way to number 31. I could give you the exact EPAs, minus 0.23 EPA per attempt when he was not on the field. But the point is the ranking itself. The ranking, they're dropping from one of the most efficient running attacks to almost the least efficient, just with this one individual out on the field playing left tackle for them. And we know he's missed a lot of time, and we know that they've had to work around this injury in the past. But it's a colossal impact, and also impacts the passing game. Dak Prescott, there's a big difference there. They dropped from the number 9 most efficient first down passing offense to the number 30 most efficient first down passing offense. He's much worse when he's blitzed. He's much worse when he's under pressure, and he's much worse against man coverage when Tyron Smith is not on the field. So I think it's going to factor in on an every single play basis. They don't have enough other players there. They lost players in the offseason. Lyle Collins was gone. They drafted the rookie to play left tackle in the future, but they've been using him all camp at left guard. And so, it's just difficult for them to replace him. And I was already down on the Dallas Cowboys entering the season, and one of the reasons was because of their offensive line. So now that he is gone, it's colossal.
What are the teams you down on, Warren Sharp, outside of Dallas?
Yeah, I'm down on the Arizona Cardinals. I think people are higher on the Cardinals than market. Here's a crazy stat, Rich, that probably a lot of people out there don't know. I didn't know it until I was doing the research to write this book this offseason. The Cardinals converted on third down and 7 to 10 yards to go, so third and long situations last year. They converted first downs 56% of the time. That was the highest in NFL history for any team in any season. No team has ever converted third and long at a 56% clip before. That is not going to happen. I mean, we talk about regression. This is going to drop big time. In 2020, that number was 28% for them. The league average is just over 30%. So they are not going to come close to that. They're going to be worse in the red zone. You've got DeAndre Hopkins. He's out for the first 6 games. This team always tends to get worse. So without him there on the field early, I'm worried about how they're going to start the season. And then you look at the schedule down the stretch. When they get Hopkins back, they play the number 1 most difficult schedule in the NFL from Week 10 onward. So this is just a very difficult season for the Arizona Cardinals with the injury, with some of the statistics offensively that are going to regress, and I'm also worried about their defense. I mentioned Dallas. And the third team I'm really down on, Rich, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year, and that may be a bold take, but the New England Patriots. I think the New England Patriots, even prior to all the camp noise about the struggles of the offense, I thought they were going to be due for regression. I think all the other teams in their division got better. Jets, maybe not so much, but definitely Dolphins. So I'm really big on the Dolphins. I think the Bills are stronger this season than they were last year if Brian Daboll's absence doesn't cause them too many problems offensively. And the Patriots are going to play a difficult schedule. They're not going to play as many easy quarterbacks like they did last season. And if that offense isn't productive enough, and my main concern with that offense, Rich, is that offensive line. I value play in the trenches. I value play along the line. We talked about it with the Cowboys. With the Patriots, because they went on that massive spending spree heading into the 2021 season after they saw Tom Brady win the Super Bowl with the Bucs, they went out and spent like they'd never spent before. All of the players that they signed, a lot of wide receivers or tight ends that they've signed, their cap hit this season is over double what it was last year. And as a result of all those cap hits increasing, they had to let a lot of players go. And so they're lost a lot of players along the offensive line that they're going to try to replace. I don't have confidence in their receiving core. So I just have a lot of question marks for the Patriots this year. And that doesn't even get into who's calling plays and how that operation is going to work.
SportsGrid and the Ringer, lead NFL analyst and the author, again, of this book that you should all get, 2022 football preview, Warren Sharp here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's talk about the teams that you're high on. I think I just picked up when you were saying the Patriots are a team that you're not as high on as others might be. Did I hear you say you're high on the Dolphins? You like them?
I am.
Why?
The Dolphins are a hot-button team because I know they got a new head coach in Mike McDaniel, but the quarterback I want to start with is Tua, obviously, because Tua is a massive hot-button player this season. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, so many people have the wrong perception of what Tua is. Tua is a player who, his first season, he comes off a catastrophic hip injury. He is rehabbing during the COVID offseason where he can't get into the facility. His offensive coordinator is Chan Gailey, who was recently retired, is now coming back to the NFL after several years solely to call plays for Ryan Fitzpatrick, a quarterback he worked with in New York with the Jets previously. After the season, Chan comes out and says, I don't even know why we inserted Tua halfway through the season. The offense was designed for Ryan Fitzpatrick. We didn't do enough to change it for Tua. Then last offseason, he suffers, I think early in the season, he breaks his ribs, misses a couple of games, breaks his finger on his throwing hand, and has to sit out some practice time. He's playing with the wide receiving core that gets the least amount of separation of any receiving core in the NFL. He's playing behind one of the worst offensive lines and the NFL's worst run game over the last 2 years. What quarterback should we expect to have success in that situation in his first 2 years in the league? So I think he's gotten just a bad rap in general with what he's actually done. I think this season, when he finally has a better offensive line, a much stronger run game, and receivers that are going to be able to separate. The 49ers, people don't realize this, Jimmy G over the last 3 years, he's averaged the highest yards per attempt of any quarterback in the NFL. And it's not because he's chucking the ball down the field with an aggressive passing attack. It's because of all the yards after the catch that the 49ers offense has been able to generate year in and year out. They ranked number one in the league for the last 4 seasons. So Mike McDaniel is going to bring elements of that, along with, of course, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They're bringing elements of that to this offense to make life easier for Tua, so he doesn't have to throw into as many tight windows, and so he can throw to guys and get more yards after the catch. So I just think Tua is going to look better, and as a result, this team is going to look better than a lot of people expect.
All right, then who else are you high on then this year, Warren Sharp?
The Minnesota Vikings are another team. That's the kind of addition by subtraction. Mike Zimmer, one of his core philosophies, in my opinion, was he wanted the team to run the ball a lot early. They were the number 4 most run-heavy team over the last 3 years because that chewed up the clock, kept his defense fresh on the sidelines, and he felt like his defense would look better if the team wasn't as aggressive offensively and if they were just trying to stay on the field a little bit more consistently. But the reality, Rich, is that a defense is going to look better when the opposing offense is more predictable. And the only way you're going to make that opposing offense more predictable is if you are a defense that is playing with a lead. And the only way to get a lead in the NFL is to be aggressive on offense yourself. Kirk Cousins' numbers, if you look at what he did in the second half of games or when the team is trailing, they're ridiculous. He is capable of being an efficient quarterback in this league. They just weren't letting him throw the ball enough on first down, on second down, early on in the games in the first quarter. And I expect the new coaching staff is going to be much more aggressive. Justin Jefferson is already saying how much this is a breath of fresh air with this new offense. Plus, their defense plays a much easier schedule of opposing quarterbacks. So I just think this defense is going to look better even without Mike Zimmer there. And then they get one extra home game. And no team in the league, Rich, over the last 10 years, since they built that stadium, has a better home field advantage, has a better win percentage versus expectation, then do the Minnesota Vikings. And keep this in mind. In 2020, no crowd, right? No fans in the stands. So there was no crowd noise helping that home field advantage, and they were not really as good at home. Last season, NFC teams played an extra road game, right? 9 road games, only 8 home games. This year, NFC teams get an extra home game. So I really think it's going to be a big difference for the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know if they're going to unseat the Green Bay Packers, but I do see this team getting to the playoffs and exceeding expectations.
Okay, so the Vikings I just named them my number one sleeper team of 2022, so I guess we're lockstep on that. You got another team you're high on? You got one more?
I like the Ravens simply because I'm bigger than people on Lamar Jackson. A lot of people, Lamar Jackson can't throw. Lamar Jackson's not a good enough quarterback. And I've tried my best to debunk all of those theories. I was super big on him even before 2019 when he came in and took the league by storm. Every single year I've been really higher than market on Lamar Jackson. But I think people forget, this team was the number 1 seed for the AFC. With all the great AFC teams last year, they were the number 1 seed in early December. Once Lamar Jackson got hurt, he hurt his ankle, they didn't win a single other game from that point on. But they were the number 1 seed prior to when he hurt his ankle. And that was with this team having to make way wide-sweeping changes because they were one of the most run-heavy teams in the league for several years. They became like the 8th most pass-heavy team last season because they had no running backs. Every back got hurt before the season. He's been playing with one of the cheapest, least expensive wide receiving cores for years, almost ever since he got there. This year they have the 32nd cap hit for wide receivers. He's been getting it done without quality wide receivers, and last year without any running backs. I think, their backs aren't quite as healthy as I was hoping they would be at this point. I think they're going to have better team health. I think Lamar's going to have better protection from his offensive line. And I think this team has a solid defense this year. They built it up a little bit in the offseason, got a new defensive coordinator in there. I expect big things coming from the Ravens this year.
Warren Sharp from the SportsGrid, The Ringer, and again, his own book, the 2022 football preview, Sharp Football Analysis, at Warren Sharp on Twitter, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So this has been, March was insane. I mean, I've been through, this is now my 20th season in the NFL coming up. I've never seen a March like the one that we just saw. The number of players, bold-faced name players who switch teams, I lost track on all of them, offense and defense. I mean, I guess it started with Brady coming out of retirement and ended with Bobby Wagner showing up in Los Angeles. That's how March went. And there, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill in between. That's my long windup for this now pitch to you. Which new player in a new place, or I guess it could have been even Russ Wilson deciding to go to Denver, that was the biggest first domino to fall. Which new player in new place do you think is set up for the biggest amount of success and the team will reap the benefits of? Warren Sharp.
Yeah, I think it's impossible to say Russ and to not say Russ, and so I'm going to take out like all the quarterbacks that change teams,
okay,
and specifically Russ. I really think Allen Robinson is going to have a tremendous season this year, and a lot of people are sleeping on what he was having to deal with in Chicago with those players and the production he was still able to deliver on the field when he was healthy. I think he's going to make a big difference for a Rams passing attack this year. But the player that I think, naturally this is also going to be an easy answer. So I gave you Allen Robinson first, but I will say A.J. Brown and Tyreek Hill both are going to make big differences for their respective teams. I think a lot of people are expecting the Philadelphia Eagles to come out and run the ball like they were running the ball late last season. And I know A.J. Brown's not going to get the target, but the coverage that he's going to command from opposing defenses is going to make life easier, not only on Hurts, but on the run game for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think they are going to pass the ball at a little bit of a higher rate, but just having him on the field is going to be massive, and that's the same type of impact that Tyreek Hill is going to make for Tua down in Miami. So I don't think either of those guys are going to get maybe the high level of targets and production that potentially Allen Robinson could get, because there's a lot of mouths to feed down in Miami, and they're probably going to run the football a little bit more than they have been. And although I think Philly's going to pass the ball more, they do get the ball to the open guy, and they will still run the ball at a high rate. So I don't know that either of those players are going to make the massive stat lines that they've had in their prior stops, but the difference they're going to make when they're on the field for both of those quarterbacks is going to be tremendous.
So now let's insert Russell Wilson back into the equation, Warren, because that is such a crucial part of the entire football season from the first Monday night game with him returning to Seattle. The whole country's going to start to see what the Broncos look like with Russell Wilson there and Nathaniel Hackett, now the new head coach there. And how do you see that working out from letting Russ cook in Seattle being the mantra to what now in Denver? Warren, what do you think?
Well, I think Denver is going to love having Russ there. I think this team obviously has struggled to find a starting quarterback since they lost Manning, and now they've got one. And they've got one who's able to throw the ball deep with accuracy and efficiency. And that's something really that none of their quarterbacks recently have been able to do. You know, Drew Lock tried to throw the ball deep. He liked throwing the ball deep. He was aggressive with it, but his accuracy was literally the worst in the NFL. They're moving from one of the least accurate quarterbacks in the NFL throwing the ball 20-plus yards down the field to the sixth most accurate in the NFL over the last several years. I mean, Russell Wilson puts the ball where he needs it to go on these deep passes, and now he's playing in an offense that's going to allow him to pass the ball in very opportune situations, which are on early downs. I talked to you earlier about you don't want to be predictable. The rules are such that offenses are going to have the upper hand as long as you're not predictable. And the problem with Russ is he was dealing with his offense previously with a head coach who got involved that got them to run the ball too much on early downs and pass the ball more so on third down. And that's when the defense knows you're going to be passing the ball, which is why first down passes are so much more efficient than third down passes, because the defense doesn't know what's coming and you could be running the ball. And I think Denver's going to have a much higher pass rate on first down that's going to make Russ look even better and is going to really increase the ceiling for the Broncos. It's to be determined how quickly he gels with his new head coach, a play caller. But I think once they do gel, there's enough weapons. I'm really big on Cortland Sutton this season. I think he's going to have a tremendous year for fantasy, and his upside is really tremendous. I think he's going to do much better than expectation.
Man, there were just nuggets galore right there, Warren Sharp. Do you traffic in Super Bowl predictions or no? Do you do that sort of thing?
I do.
What do you got?
I do, yes.
So what do you got?
I like the LA Chargers as long as two things don't happen. Number one is injuries. You know, they already J.C. Jackson is not a laughing matter, but J.C. Jackson already went down with injury. This team is just snake bitten. So if they stay healthy, the only thing, in my opinion, that can derail them from going to the Super Bowl is the play calling by the offensive coordinator. You know, they have such a low target depth with Joe Lombardi. He did it to Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford ranked in his last year 44th out of 44 quarterbacks in target depth when Joe Lombardi was calling plays there. It's insane how Joe Lombardi wants to shrink the field and throw the ball short. And he did it with Drew Brees, obviously. He did it with Matthew Stafford. He did it with Justin Herbert last season. If they throw the ball deep, they're going to have some success. So I want them to open the offense up a little bit more. But this team, they did such a great job in the offseason of plugging the holes that they had thanks to Justin Herbert being in his rookie deal and their general manager being very aggressive. And I think they have the most talented roster in the NFL. So if it's not the play calling or injuries, I think this team's going all the way. In the NFC, I like long shots. I like teams like the Minnesota Vikings. I like teams not the favorites to go. I like the Philadelphia Eagles maybe. I'm looking for long shot values in the NFC because I think the Bucs are weaker than they've been. I think the Packers are a little bit weaker than they've been. So I like the Ravens and I like the Chargers more than expectation in the AFC. I think the Chargers go, and I think potentially, you know, a sleeper team like the Vikings or like the 49ers. You were talking about Trey Lance before I came on. I think those teams all have good shots as well.
Warren Sharp, you're the man. Look for more of my phone calls. Thanks for joining. Greatly appreciate it.
Hey,
Congrats on the book. Congrats on the book.
Thank you so much.
You got everyone should check out 2022 football preview by Warren Sharp at Warren Sharp
Rich,
on Twitter.
I'll tell you, it's close to the season. We don't have much time. I'll give $1. The book is $1 for all of your listeners. Just enter the coupon code RICH. You get it for $1. I'm not trying to make money off of it right now. I'm just trying to get people to read it. So $1.
All right, you got it, man. Thanks for doing that for all who are listening and watching. Thanks, Warren. Look for more of my phone calls. Thanks again. Greatly appreciate it.
Rich.
That's Warren Sharp, everybody.